Okay, more nostalgia time. I've cracked open a huge box. It's mostly full of old drawings, so it's going to be very difficult to decide what to throw away. But this box goes right back to when I was super young. Let's see what treasures are inside from all the different years. That is a Tamagotchi pouch for oh, here it is. This is like the first generation Tamagotchi from back in the day. And I had this pocket in the back of it. Oh man, look how gross this thing is. It is well worn. Had this pouch in the back of it that you could store your Tamagotchi in. It would be like I guess a protective case for it. It quadrupled the size of the thing, but I used it a lot apparently, and even figured out how to fit my Digimon inside, the sequel to it. I'm quite fond of this one because it was really easy to see from a distance. I remember I was one of the first kids in school to actually get a Digimon, because if you look at the Tamagotchi here, its buttons are completely worn away from just stabbing it with your fingernail. So it's completely busted. Went to get a new one. These ones had just gotten released, and everyone's like, what the heck's a Digimon? I guess I'll give it a go. Had this thing attached to the top. So it was basically a Tamagotchi, but with two-player mode. This is my sister's one. And what you do is they'd evolve like a Pokemon or a Tamagotchi. And once they got to a certain age, you'd connect them together like this, just for a split second, and you press a button, and then, ow! That hurt, and all the data would be transferred from one to another and would determine a winner. And the more often you'd fight, you'd either get stronger and start unlocking secret forms, or they would just straight out die. And then, of course, the Digimon anime came along, and the actual toy that it was based on was completely forgotten. Anyway, what else we got? Here is what was called a mini Game Boy Classic, and it was essentially a re-release of a Game & Watch, styled like a Game Boy itself. But I was too young to know what a Game & Watch was, so I thought this was just a little game that you could put on a keyring, which is great. I think it still works, but yeah, the battery cover's gone, so they don't actually stay in there. It's quite nice that it's a full-size D-pad and stuff. Whatever. Anyway, moving on. So some more recent stuff. There's an iPhone 4G, and I've even got my original iPhone. This is the 3G. So yeah, not 4G, just the iPhone 4, and then the iPhone 3G, which was the second one released, but it was the first one released in Australia. So this is a nice OG plastic back. Yeah, that's come a long way. I was about to put my current phone down next to it, but realized I'm recording with it right now. Prior to that, there's a charging cable for this. This is a 3 phone. Do you remember 3? The brand 3? Is that just an Australian thing? LG might be familiar. Ooh, look at that rainbow shine. This thing started to get pretty worn down. You can see raw circuit in there, but that's okay because the color scheme of the board matches the color scheme of the phone itself. This is the flip phone era. I loved this phone. This was the first time that internet first started to become a thing, and I liked that there were lots of buttons that did all sorts of things. I'm not sure what did they do. So I had a D-pad, so there were shortcuts to the music, the contacts, email, and I think that's contacts. No, I just said contacts. I think it's just like to-dos and stuff. If you're unfamiliar with newer phones, I think most of my audience is like in their 20s. You remember what phones like this look like. So this thing here was the camera, so you could scroll around to do selfies, but the mechanism broke, and it seems to be staying still at the moment, but it's really grindy, like there's sand in there. But for a long time, oh, there it goes. It would just sort of flip back to facing front again, which I thought was quite funny. After a while, the colors started to break as well, so it was like having early Snapchat filters, only it was completely authentic because the lens was just busted. Anyway, so I've hung on to that, and it still works. It's got files and stuff in it from the last time I checked it. What else have we got? I think the last thing I'll show is this. If we would go even earlier in regards to smartphone era, this, the Brain Station. It was like a digital organizer that I used when I was 8 or 9, this real El Cheapo thing. The cover does nothing. It's just a piece of plastic that has instructions inside on how to do things. Things like how to enter a telephone number, how to enter a memo. That's professional. We used memos back then, but I had a QWERTY keyboard. The buttons still feel nice to press, if that amounts for anything. I think I mainly just used it for a calculator when I was in school, but it was fun to write down people's phone numbers and stuff in it, because if you remember, this is before mobile phones were a thing at all, or at least for kids. You know, a child wouldn't have their own phone. So you would have to remember your friend's home phone number by writing it down or just remembering it in your head. And then you'd call it up, and most of the time their parents would answer, and you'd have to ask for them, and it was all very awkward. This thing, oh no, not that one. This watch, this is a gross watch. See how completely worn out it is, and it's got this great big button in the middle that says light. I'm going to come back to this because the interface for this watch was inspiration for one of my earliest stories I did with a comic robot superhero. So like that texture on the band and everything, like it's really plain and crummy, but I guess like the idea behind it was rather inspiring, and I really wanted to sort of grow it and see where it would lead. I keep saying last thing, but actual last thing, this is funny. Look, there's a photo of me as a child with my eyes closed because they only took one picture. So this is a privilege license. I had 18 points and I got 2 knocked off because I was a naughty boy. So my teacher in 2nd grade was, she was very clever. Every school term, there was a different system in order to keep people in line. And they were very creative and clever, and I think they change up every semester just to stop us from getting bored of them. So one very clever one was, say, the lucky pencil, because kids were always losing their pencil, right? So everybody got a pencil with their name on it, like delegated, and it was their lucky pencil, and once a week on the Friday afternoon, someone would have their name drawn from a hat. And if you got your name drawn, you'd get a prize, like some chocolate or lollies or a small toy or something like that. But in order to claim your prize, you needed to have your lucky pencil. So it was an incentive to make sure you didn't lose it. Another gimmick at the very end of the year was rather than getting merit certificates, we were rewarded with fake dollars. Like it was just pieces of card with currency written on it. And we designed our own little envelopes and we saved them up, and at the end of the year we had a legit auction, and we auctioned off all of the decorations and junk around the classroom for us to take home. Finally, there was this one, the privilege license, where all the kids were over the moon with something like this because it made us feel like adults, because adults have driver's licenses, and by giving us a laminated piece of card with our name and a face on it, for some reason that made us be mature or something like that. And you'll notice, like the lucky pencil, this also had a lucky draw at the end of the week, where from a deck of cards, everyone had a card number assigned to them. So it was the 6 of hearts apparently, and this was one of the few that had a punishment system as well. So like a real license, if you were bad for whatever reason, you would get points knocked off, which wouldn't really do a whole lot other than just, it would give a sense of guilt and shame to all of your peers, and it was quite effective. Having lower points, which everyone could see, was you didn't really want that. Oh, one more thing. I should stop. This is this is the watch I had when I was a young kid, which was like really high tech and cool, right? Because it's colorful and it's got flaps and all these gadgets and junk in it. So there was this brand called Wild Planet, apparently. Oh man, I forgot this was a thing. Is this still a thing? I don't know. But they made all this like clever, like over-the-top spy junk. Like there was one called the Supersonic Ear, which was straight out just a satellite dish with headphones, and you could strap it on and turn it on, and it would just amplify sound at a distance, so you could like eavesdrop on conversations happening down the street. All right, and so this thing, it was just like, like look at it, it's like a utility belt. So it's got a magnifying glass there, a little mirror. Look, you can see the lens of the camera, or not really. Compass, which I think is busted. Is it? Hang on. No, the compass still works. That's cool. The thermometer is well broken though. The handle on the thermometer broke off back when I was actively using it as a kid, so that sucked. And then of course an actual watch, which it looks like the LCD fluid is starting to like liquid crystal. What these screens made of? It looks like it's leaking. So through the magnifying glass, you could still see the time. That was quite a fun thing to have, and being bright colors and little child wrists with something as bulky as that, you would be the talk of the playground.